Hello, everyone, and welcome. We're really excited to speak with you today. We're going to get started in a couple of minutes, so I'm going to put on the good old starting soon. And we're really excited to speak with you. We'll probably get started in a couple of minutes. Just let everyone get logged in. Okay, everyone, we're just going to give everyone one more minute to get logged on, and then we're going to get started. Okay, everybody. Well, thank you all for coming on today. My name is Paul Kahn. I am the Senior Vice President of Sales here at Upfluence, and I'm really excited that today we have a panel discussion to talk about what you need to do to create a successful influencer marketing campaign. Very excited to welcome in the people who are working with me today. So first and foremost, we have, well, not first and foremost, but we have first Jerome Cosavella, who is the VP of Influencer Services here at Upfluence. And Jerome has been with the company since for almost 6 years, I think, and has been sort of leading the charge and helping us create really amazing branded content for a lot of our clients using influencer marketing. And we're really excited to have him. But we're also really excited to have one of our clients, and this is Josh Wiedling. Am I saying your last name right, Josh? Now's the wrong time to ask. I'll let Josh say his last name correctly. I apologize. But Josh is the influencer and social media marketing manager at Tiege Hanley, which is a men's skincare brand based in Chicago. And in his role, he leads all influencer and affiliate marketing, as well as social media and paid advertising. And I want to just welcome both of you. And Josh, first and foremost, can you please tell me how to pronounce your name correctly? No, I'm just teasing. But
it's Weidling, like wide and then ling. Yeah, it's German. You pronounce the E and the I opposite.
Okay. So. And apologies for that, and that's just anyway, I apologize. So Josh, how are things out in Chicago today?
It's sunny today. That's good. It was overcast for a few days, so I'm always happy to have some sun.
Yeah, it's a good thing, right? And Jerome, how are things? And Jerome's joining us from Switzerland today, where he runs the office there. And how are things in Switzerland?
It's pretty nice. Really good weather, and everything's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So now let's sort of get to the conversation. One of the things that we wanted to talk about today is why influencer marketing is such a strong piece of a marketing mix. And we have this quote from Enigma in Switzerland, who's a client of Jerome's, actually, which is, "In the post-truth world, influencer marketing is one of the rare trust enablers that works." And the idea behind this is, working with influencers gives you this capacity to have a genuine voice that talks about what your brand cares about. And what we want to talk about today is, how do you go about building up the entire campaign of that, so that it looks easy and it looks genuine from the influencer's point of view. So that's the conversation that we're going to have today. And we're going to talk about a few different, what we're calling pillars of success. But and the idea here is, how do we think about what we need to do sort of before we start? What sort of prep and research and ideas do we have to have? How do we create the strategy that we need to be successful? How do we find the right people that match our brand's voice and needs? And then what kinds of ways do we think really make sense for sealing the deal? So that's going to be sort of our broad topics of conversation today. So the first one, where do I start? Right. So what is the preparation? What is the thought process that we need to think about? So Jerome, can you give us an idea of, what's the first thing that some of these brands that we're talking to need to be thinking about as they get started?
Often what we have is actually skipping this step, and the step is really preparation. So I really think it's really key for any campaign and I mean, just like any marketing plan in any mix, you really need to think it through. I think one of the most common error companies are making when doing influencer marketing is to actually not have a clear objective about the campaign. Influencer marketing can achieve many different types of objectives, whether it is acquisitions, whether it is brand awareness, and of course some of those objectives can be combined, but at the end of the day you really want to rank them in between basically what you want to do first, so that you can then strategize and do whatever you want, but in the purpose of reaching first the number one goal, and then to also include other secondary goals that you can have within your campaign, brand awareness and so on and so forth. So I think that's the main thing, but also defining what is your end target. And it also comes without the misunderstanding of thinking that your end target is the influencer profile you're searching for. Right. Sometimes the influencer isn't the perfect target, the one that would buy your product, but is talking to the target that you want to talk to. So really think it through, defining budget. It's really key to, you need to understand first how much time you can give into a project to know whether you want to work with a ton of micro influencers or a small amount of large influencers, because you have a huge budget for payout, but not that much time to basically do the work and contact the influencers and so on and so forth. And of course, think about the timeline. Be of course realistic, but don't take too long.
All right, so that's a lot of chunks of the puzzle at once, right? So I wanna take it to Josh for a second. Like at Tige, how do you think about campaign objectives? Are you mostly concerned about building up the awareness of the Tige Hanley brand? Are you thinking about ROI? Is it some sort of a mix? What sorts of KPIs are sort of most important for you as you're thinking about a campaign?
Yeah, being, a relatively, not small business, but, I was the second employee at the company. Now right. We have a pretty well built out team. And so even now, sales is a primary objective, and mm-hmm. finding people that can sell, because there is a difference between being able to reach an audience and being able to sell to an audience. And mm-hmm. so awareness is taken into account, but sales is the primary driver for us. And that's strictly, a lot of that lies on, what kind of product are you selling? And for Tige Hanley, it's men's skincare, which is it's not necessarily a niche product, because your potential audience is, for us, all of men. And so right. Above a certain age, but, we're not honey. We're not a VPN service, one of the many that are out there where it's, cross genders, there's no shipping that you have to take into account. Mm-hmm. There's less barriers. And so it's really what kind of product you have. Right. And if you have to come to terms with the fact that your product might not be the best fit for a large scale audience, and that may help you make your decision.
So I think that's really important here, right? Like, so as you're thinking about your campaign objectives, thinking about who your target audience is, what your costs are. We don't like to always think about that, but when you're selling a physical product, as you say, you have to build the product, we have to sell the product, it goes to a certain person. Is this a niche product? Does it go to a specific group of people, or is it something that's kind of more good for everyone? And Jerome, in terms of that, right? Like, so Josh brought up sort of a distinction between kind of an e-commerce brand, but also maybe a tech ad. Honey's a great tech add-on or something like that, or an app. Can you talk a little bit about how you've seen people in the tech space act a little differently than maybe people in a D2C space or something like that?
I think that it's not really about the industry, but more about the philosophy of each client that we have at Upfluence as an agency. But yeah, there are really different perspectives in doing influencer marketing. I think one mistake many people do when actually seeing the results and defining whether the campaign was a success is to only focus on one goal. So of course, if you're doing an acquisition campaign, the main objective that you will have, whether you're an app, whether you're a main skincare product or whatsoever, you will look at the sales that you've generated through the campaign. But still, you will generate brand awareness and it still has value for a campaign. No matter the industry you're on, people that might not buy today might buy tomorrow or the week after, and as all marketing channels, it's all about repetition. So I'm thinking that most of the apps will definitely work on a download basis, and usually when they're going to conceive the campaign, they will directly think about a CPI campaign where they only pay per number of installs to the influencers. So I'd say, yeah, the scope and the idea of all the campaigns is different, but at the end of the day, that shouldn't. Every campaign should be considered as a whole of a campaign with all of the attributes and, of course, the main goal that you have, the main objective that you set upstream.
Okay. And, we were talking a little bit about target audience, right? So Jerome, you were talking about how when you have to make sure that you know who you're talking to, and you brought up a very interesting point. Sometimes in influencer marketing, what you really need to do is find the influencer who's talking to the people that you're talking to. So for people who are new to influencer marketing, can you give them some ideas about how you would think about finding an influencer who sells to a specific group in that way?
Yeah, that's a wide question. So that depends also the tool that you have in place and how you can basically search for influencers. Not to really be promotional about Upfluence, even if, just kidding. But so basically when you're, I think first step, really prepare. What is your actual target? For a campaign, you can also have several different targets. Then once you have this step done, then you can think about what social network you want to go on. And then only afterwards you can think about the influencer profile. I think that's maybe too early in the process of preparation to directly think of an influencer profile. I think you need really first because for instance, let's say you haven't thought about the budget that you have. You don't really know, or you have preconceived idea on whether you should work with micro influencers or with big influencers, depending on who you've been talking to, what articles you've been reading the past 5 years. And so, maybe the targeting that you will have will be completely different whether you're contacting a huge influencer or small influencers. As a rule of thumb, usually we try to really focus first on a really niche influencer that really talks to the core target that you have, and then go wider and wider if you cannot find that specific influencers. But I think the key thing that you want to look at is the quality of the content. You can look per hashtags, for instance, really per the content really produced by the influencer, and if they have any affinity with the type of product you're offering or services, of course. And then go on to, of course, whether they have fake followers or not, and all of the really important metrics that you want to look at, the engagement rate, the number of comments, whether they have fake followers, and so on and so forth.
Okay. And Josh, in terms of Tige, can you talk about, from the brand's perspective, Jerome's talking about it from a multi-brand perspective, but when you were sitting down and you were employee number 2, right? I'm sure there was a large conversation about, okay, who do we need to find? Who are the exact people? Where do they live? All of that. Can you give us a little bit of an insight into that?
Yeah, as I was saying before, with a somewhat, at least at this point in the history of of our society, men's skincare is still considered a niche product, and so for us, it was and I had the great pleasure of having one of the co-founders of the company being a massive YouTube influencer. His name's Aaron Marino. His channel's Alpha M, and he talks about topics like men's style, men's fitness, men's fashion, men's advice. And so that was sort of, and I knew what was working there. And so I could use what was working there to inform my decisions in other places. Other brands aren't going to have that exact same scenario and those I guess those legs up. And so for me, it was trying to find other people that I feel would be open to trying something new. Mm-hmm. And having it be something around improving themselves. And so as long as I follow those guide rails, when I'm looking for influencers, I usually can find people that can be successful. And so that's those are the main places that's the main place I start, is finding a topic that I feel will work, mm-hmm. a general topic, and then doing the research within that topic to find, okay, has the influencer done pitches for other brands? What other brands have they worked with? Mm-hmm. What do those pitches that they've done in the past look like? How do they integrate the content into the normal video? And so a lot of those play a pretty large role, and it varies. I mean, the one thing that everyone has to remember when getting into influencer marketing, it's not a light switch. Right. You can't just say, all right, influencers are on today and it's done. Right. Most of the campaigns I set up take sometimes up to 3 months to get an initial video out into the marketplace, because I want to make sure that someone tests the product, that it actually works for them, and that they can talk about it with extreme confidence and from a genuine perspective. And so, unlike Facebook marketing or email or Google PPC or whatever, those are all things that you can just turn on and off. Right. When you have more budget or when you need to decrease budget, you have every lever to pull.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that is a hugely important point, and I'm glad you brought this up in terms of timeline, right? When you really sit down and think about it, you're mentioning 3 months. We basically say the least it can go is about 4 to 6 weeks. And that's if you really are just having somebody on it all the time, really pushing it as hard as possible, because of what you're talking about. You're not dealing with Google or Facebook where you enter some stuff and it's there. You're dealing with people, right? And it's a different channel. And to get that authenticity, you really do need to give them the chance to experience it, especially a product like skincare, where it's, I having watched a bunch of your videos, people are using the product for a month before they're actually even posting about it, usually in general. So, and that really is a best practice, and something that I think is really important. It's not, and it does get into the downside is when you try to do it fast, the only thing you can do is a bot shout out. And that just doesn't work in the same way. You really want that genuine content, and you really want it to work well. Okay, so now that we've sort of talked about a little bit around, how do I think about this? What's my target audience? What am I hoping to achieve? What's my timeline? I want to go to the next stage, which is where, right? So where do I want to do this? And I want to talk a little bit about different types of platforms, and why different types of platforms work for different people. And I think, so Jerome, I want to ask you about just Instagram itself. Like, what are the big advantages to running a campaign on Instagram? What kinds of brands tend to do well there?
Yeah, so it actually depends on what type of content you're aiming to publish on Instagram. But let's take just the general, so basically stories and in-feed posts that most company do when doing influencer marketing. Instagram, and it actually depends on the markets and the countries you're doing the campaign on. And that's really something that you want to take into consideration and do some research when you're planning for your campaign. But basically, for instance, in North America and Europe, countries that I know the most about. The Instagram will be really targeted towards millennials and even younger people, so that we'll talk to Gen Z, millennials, and it even gets older and older. So even older people tend to go on Instagram. Instagram then is a really visual platform. So you really want it's short form content. So you don't want to publicize your product and services on Instagram if you need some context, if you need some explanation about how something works. If you need an actual demonstration, you can use stories, yes. But I would say that I would rather recommend long form type of content like YouTube, where an influencer can actually describe what a product is made for. So I'd say that's the main thing. And about the results on Instagram, that's really great for brand awareness, and it can be really good also for acquisition, even if I don't think it's the top one when it comes to selling products. But it's a really good social network for awareness whenever you want to have your brand seen.
Yeah, two quick things on that. One is, short form content is great on Instagram. One way to think about it is if a picture can sell it, great, put it on Instagram. But the downside is if you need more information or you're really focused on acquisition, Instagram is less is good, but it's not necessarily your top choice. So I want to talk about a different channel that can be really good for acquisition and for longer form content. So Josh, I know that Tige does most of its influencer marketing on YouTube. Can you give us a sense of how that choice was made and why you think that's the right direction to be going?
Yeah, building on what Jerome just said, if you, and what you just said, Paul, if you need any sort of explanation, if you need any sort of education when it comes to selling a product, you have to be able to educate someone. And to think that someone's going to be on Instagram scrolling through their feed and then see a pretty picture that they may like it, but then to actually go and read the description of that picture is a whole nother story. And then them to build the story around that picture and with the context you're giving in the description, it's a stretch for me. And so for us, it was easy to make the decision to do more YouTube. And we have done Instagram as well, as we've done podcasts, as we've done sort of everything, kind of testing the waters. But I'll bring back up the same example that I used earlier, which was the VPN services. That's a great example of a product that can be sent to a wider audience but needs explanation. Mm-hmm. So their easy choice should be YouTube. With skincare, what I sell, it's a very visual product because visual in the sense that the results are what you're seeing. Not visual in the sense that it's a dress or it's a fitness outfit or it's a certain product that you're using that can be seen and you can understand the action just by seeing a picture of it. And so for us, the decision was pretty easy to move to YouTube for most of our stuff. We know that we need explanation. We know that we need 60 to 90 seconds to really get of captivated attention. Mm-hmm. to get someone interested in the general concept of skincare. And so yeah, I think the VPN example, connecting it to what I said earlier, is a really good one, and because it just proves that there are platforms for every product, and I don't think I've ever seen a VPN being pitched on Instagram. It maybe in stories, maybe. That's because you have the video aspect, but even then it's really short. And if you've interacted with stories as I have as a user, you know how fast people skip through things, especially when they aren't engaged fully mm-hmm. with the content that's being given to them, or if they see the hashtag ad or whatever it is. And so yeah, it's really about knowing what kind of attention you need to grab, and knowing that on YouTube you may have to pay a premium for that attention, but if that it's about quality versus quantity.
Okay. And I just want to mention one thing. We are going to do a QA. I see a bunch of questions coming into the chat. We're going to do a QA in a little bit to talk about all the questions that you have. now let's get into more of the fun stuff in terms of like types of campaigns, right? Like, um, what what are some of the really fun different ways that people can leverage, let's say Instagram to start with, or actually let's go YouTube to start with, Josh. Like, what are different fun things that people can be doing on YouTube to sort of break the mold a little bit?
So, there's two really, I guess, general types of campaigns that you see in influencer marketing. There's the big launches where you have a lot of influencers going live at once, creating a really big splash.
Right.
And that works when you're a known brand that doesn't really care about all the noise that's out in the marketplace when you do something like that. And then you have the strategy that I take, which is we focus on a campaign as a person. It's the whole all of our interactions with one influencer is a campaign. And then we have content launches, which is just individual launches for each person. And so that creates it creates much less of a splash, a lot less confusion. I can see more directly where results are coming from. And I'm not sure if that answered your original question, but I did want to make that really clear, because there's, if Samsung's launching a big phone, their S20, they're going to go to every single tech influencer, any single influencer that is reaching a young audience that wants all the new gadgets, and they're going to pay them to either probably test the product for a period of time, right. Especially if you're a tech influencer, but then launch those videos on a specific date, because they want to make the biggest splash and they just want to see sales rise. And they don't really. They probably care where they're coming from, but it's maybe less managed on a micro level and more on a macro level. And
well,
so,
I think that's hugely important, right? Because as a smaller, when you're talking about the difference between being a smaller brand doing influencer marketing and a larger brand, it's this giant splash is great, but it does get in the way of tracking, right? And knowing which of your influencers are genuinely really connecting, because I think that's really important as well, right, Josh?
Yeah. We found that, like, especially as we do more and more campaigns with the same people, previous content starts to perform very well, and it's likely because, again, as a consumer of the platform, you have to understand the platform that you're doing your marketing on. When you get into a new YouTube channel, you don't just watch one video. Once you hit that subscribe button, YouTube is sending you videos in your home feed that are tailored to you. And so if they think that you're going to be on the platform longer watching content from this creator that you just got into and you've shown interest in, and you've watched maybe a handful of videos, eventually you're going to get to another pitch that's one of mine. And then you're probably going to see like 20 VPN pitches, and then you're going to get to another one that's mine. And so it might not be the first one that lands. And so a lot of times when I'm starting a campaign, and this would probably go into the tracking of results aspect, I know that there's going to be things that I can optimize over time. And so you only have to look for certain indicators out of the gate to know that something can be successful in the long term.
Well, and I think this does bring up one other platform-specific question, just to go back to that for a second, which is YouTube has a longer tail, right? An Instagram post is right now and in the moment, and kind of once it goes away, people don't really dig through. They do, but a YouTube video has a life of its own and sort of can show up and gets, maybe it shows up in a Google search and it provides validation. There's all kinds of different ways that YouTube can do that. Do want to bring up one other platform that everybody's talking about right now, which is TikTok. So I know at Upfluence we've invested quite a bit in TikTok. Obviously, there's a sale going on now, so TikTok will be legal in the United States, seemingly. And I just want to ask, I'll start with Jerome. What are you hearing from people, and how are people looking to leverage TikTok as it's becoming more of a space where people are gathering?
The fun thing first, I think, is that TikTok is really part of the brand content itself. So more and more brands are actually creating an account and really investing a lot in creating awesome content and challenges on TikTok for their account themselves. And as they're doing that, they're also investigating on working with influencers within that network. I think TikTok is a bit different in the sense that the community there is usually much younger.
Mm-hmm.
So usually it's not necessarily the same brands that are working on YouTube, for instance, and working on TikTok. TikTok is interesting. It generates so many engagements. Sometimes it's even crazy how many engagements can be generated through TikTok if you have a video that goes viral. But I think that, as Josh said, the attention isn't that long. So on TikTok, it's really short. It needs to be really impactful, really visual. So you need to have something that really stick to mind easily. Otherwise, it's going to be forgotten in a matter of minutes whenever you do TikTok. But overall, I think it's we are seeing a lot of interest nowadays with TikTok.
Okay. And Josh, has there been any thought to jumping over to the dancing site? I'm just joking.
Yeah. So it's funny because when from an outsider's perspective, especially with people even at my own company, they start hearing TikTok everywhere, and they're like, "All right, Josh, when are we doing our first TikTok campaign?" And I'm like, first of all, I need to download the app, and I need to. And so it was probably 4 or 6 months ago. I downloaded the app, got on it, and the one glaring difference, although between especially TikTok and Instagram, is the attention that you get from the user. On Instagram, the way that people use the platform, at least the way I use the platform, and the people I've polled with my, very scientific of asking random people in my life, when they're using stories, when they're scrolling through their feed, they're usually doing something else. They're usually watching TV. They're usually walking. They're usually whatever I guess downtime they have. That's when they're spending time on Instagram. It's not a captivating experience. It's just something to do while you're doing something else. Whereas TikTok, no matter how hard you try, if you're actually watching the TikToks, you are fully engaged in that platform. If I don't know if either of you have used it,
yeah,
but
I can't do the dance, but I can do it.
Yeah, I'll lay in bed at night and I'll have a rerun on of a TV show I like, trying to wind down from the day. And the next thing I know, I spend an hour and a half on TikTok, and I don't know anything that's happened in any of my surroundings. And so that I think is the one difference, and the one big opportunity for marketers is that the attention of the people you're using, you're using it from an influencer perspective on the platform. Their audience is super engaged. Now, that is the big plus. The big minus. Can people build brands on TikTok, and brands being influencers building their own personal brand? Because I don't know about you when you've used the platform, but I never go to my follow feed. I'm always on the home feed of the curated content. And yes, they definitely put people that I follow in there, but it's maybe 10% of the time, at least from my experience. And so that is a big red flag. So the platform hasn't fully matured yet. So we'll see if what happened on YouTube happens for TikTok, where, it's sort of a blended experience. You're spending time on both of these feeds. You're excited when new content's coming out from your favorite creator. I think certain creators have been able to do this, like a Charlie D'Amelio, of course. That's the most obvious one. Even coming from YouTube, a David Dobrik has been able to do this. But even if that follower count is very deceiving, that engagement count is very deceiving, that view count is very deceiving on TikTok, because TikTok's algorithm is so powerful. It's actually insane. And so yeah, that's my perspective on TikTok. Jerome, I'd love to hear yours.
Yeah, I fully agree with what you're saying. I think indeed, if you need to have some explanations to deep dive into product features or services description, it's not the right social network. If you're looking to create some viral things, then you need to go on TikTok. It's really the place where things go viral nowadays. So it's not Instagram anymore. It's not Vine as it used to be.
Twitter's kicking itself a little bit, I think.
Getting old.
I mean, basically TikTok is fine.
Yeah, definitely if you're looking to engage with audience, to create really fun things, because I think TikTok is all about fun. So that should remain like the messaging of what you're trying to do with TikTok. But fully agree with you, Josh.
And while we're here, I do want to talk about one other group of people, which is gamers, because they have their own platforms and their own joyful place, which is Twitch. And there are other, varieties of where they go. But Twitch is another platform that I just do want to bring up as a place where people do have fun. It's a very different kind of fun. But those Twitch influencers, their audience is fully engaged with what they're doing in a way that is really exciting and interesting as well. Okay, I want to actually give an example, because we've been talking a lot of theory here, right? Like what should we be thinking about? How should we be doing this? I want to actually show an example of hopefully this will come through. Oh, give me 1 second. That's always great when you get, okay. So this is going to be Alpha M. I believe is this the first video, or do you want to give us a little introduction on this one?
I'm trying to remember which one I sent. I believe this is a relatively recent one.
Okay.
And for context, it's a part of, I sent, I think, a 2-minute clip.
Yeah.
And it's a part of a larger 10-minute video, of course. And so yeah, this is not a 2-minute ad that he put on his YouTube channel. So. All
right. So this is just an idea of a piece of content that's really performed well. So I'm just going to let this play.
There's a link down below to the T. Shanley starter system. In the starter system, you are going to get the T. Shanley face wash. You're also going to get the AM moisturizer with an SPF of 20. And you're also, while supplies last, going to get the T. Shanley lip balm. And the price, $15 a month. That's it. $15 a month. Less than 50 cents a day. So you've got to decide, guys, is it worth it to you? Is it worth it to you to have a handsome face with clear skin? If the answer is yes, hit the link down below and go sign up and grab the T. Shanley starter system. And then, starting in month number 2, you're going to get the wash along with the AM moisturizer for $15. But if the answer is no, it's not worth it, that's cool. Do not go and hit that link and grab a starter system. Please save these for people that are serious about taking care of their skin, because we have a limited supply of the free lip balm, guys, and the lip balm is amazing. Now, the other beautiful thing, if you're somebody who wants to try some additional amazing T. Shanley products, guys, while you're checking out today, you can actually add any of the additional T. Shanley products to your order. So while you're checking out, if you're like, yo, my eyes, I got dark circles, I got bags, I got crow's feet, grab an eye cream. This stuff is ridiculous, a total game changer. Or maybe a wash body bar or a scrub body bar. These things are amazing. This is a daily bar. This is like every 3 days, because this bad boy, when you scrub it, literally could take a nipple off. But if you've got dry skin or you want to really exfoliate, guys, this thing is amazing. Do not wait, start today. Hit that link down below and grab the T. Shanley starter system with the free lip balm, $15 freaking while supplies last. Guys, limited supply. Get started today if you're interested. If not, I get it, but the bottom line is this. Regardless of if you use T. Shanley products or some other lower quality product that's more expensive, you need to start taking better care of your face.
Okay. So first off, that as we were talking about today, I knew that if we were at all dragging as we were talking, which we're not, this would get us all pumped up. So, this is sort of this is an example of your founder, who's also a YouTube influencer, sort of talking through the T. Shanley products. Can you talk about a little bit about why a video like that has been successful in terms of pushing content and things like that, that sort of in your face kind of vibe and all of that kind of stuff? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So first of all, it's such a pleasure to work with Aaron. Both with his videos and in all the strategic capacity at T. Shanley. He's so smart, humble, kind. It's rare that you get to work with someone at his level. on YouTube, being over 6 million subscribers in such an in-depth capacity. And he is, in my opinion, the best salesman on YouTube. Like he creates great content for his audience, and he creates really great content for all of his brands that subscribe or that advertise on his channel. And so he's very in your face. He's very direct. He knows how to pitch a product. He's a used car salesman, but get rid of the used car aspect. And so he's just really good at what he does. And it's always, and so if you as the viewer just saw that and you don't want to buy T. Shanley, I don't know what would make you want to buy T. Shanley.
Now, so one thing that you just brought up, which I think is really important, is the mix between kind of content and ads and brands. So this is something we care a lot about here at Upfluence, right? Because an influencer who, we've all seen the influencer whose entire feed is ads, where every piece of content they've created is something to sell something for a brand. It doesn't mean we don't like it, but it also starts to feel like an ad channel, not like a genuine thing. I know our platform actually keeps track of that now, where we can actually understand what we call the saturation rate in terms of ads versus content. Jerome, can you talk about a little bit, why it's important to make sure that we're not finding where we're finding influencers that have that direct connection, not just the brand connection?
Yeah, it's really important to, and I mean, you will see it also with, for instance, engagements and comments. So if you want to have as an influencer an engaged community, you need to be trustworthy. You need to basically really believe in what you sell them, and not just be an ad that you see on the street for a car. No, you're not that. You're a person that actually give recommendations to their audience. And it's really important for them to really be organic about that, be genuine. We said that a lot, but it's really important here. And of course, a key metric is the saturation rate, as we call it on our software. It's basically to be able to see on the total number of posts that an influencer is publishing on his social network, how many of them, are actually a sponsored post where they are mentioning a brand. And from that ratio, you can have a sense of whether an influencer is a good fit in regards to doing advertising, or if it's just going to be another billboard. Really important. I mean, there are a few exceptions. So for instance, there are many beauty influencers out there, especially in the women's space on Instagram, that, for instance, are basically followed for doing reviews. So, of course, they are doing a lot of reviews, and that's basically their day-to-day content. So in that specific case, you don't need to be afraid of that if you want to have reviews. Same goes with tech influencers. As soon as they have freedom of speech when it comes to reviewing the product, and it doesn't display an hashtag ad, for instance, on the Instagram post. But really look into that. That's a good advice.
And so that kind of goes to the next spot, which is how do we find the right people? What sort of, and I want to talk about this from a couple of different perspectives, but how do you find the right people from a metric perspective? Like, what are the metrics that matter? And Jerome, I'll ask you to sort of talk about that on Instagram. Why is it that followers and, used to be all we cared about was followers, right? And then we got wise to people buying fake followers. So then we cared about engagement rate. So can we talk about sort of the next sort of fight in that battle, which was what you were talking about? How do you sort of deal with those fake engagements, fake followers, so that when you're talking to an influencer, you're actually paying, working with them for the people that are actually following them, not pods or fake followers, things like that?
Yeah, so you've been mentioning it. I think really important not to just focus on the size of the community, but really have more qualitative KPIs that you want to look at. And so many brands today, they want, it's kind of vanity, but they want to work with the biggest one, whatsoever their target, whatsoever the real engagement and the sales that they can generate. So really avoid any vanity metrics, whether it is working with a lot of influencers, as many as possible, or with the biggest one as possible. Really focus on quality. And I think the key metrics today are engagements. And I even go further than that, and I actually like to have influencers with the most comments as possible. And I think it's really key because influencers with a lot of likes are, of course, valuable, and it's a sign of this influencer engaging with this community. But influencers with a lot of comments usually means that they are really close to their community, and that they are a really power of a salesman because people trust those people more because they interact with the community. So that's the first thing. Second thing is, of course, to check for what we call fake influencers. And I think it's that's
a good term. I like that.
And it's really important. And there are two different things you want to look at. So are there fake followers and are there fake engagement? And it's really important to check for both. So the ideal is to have a software where you can actually monitor it really quickly. But if you do not have a software, you have few things you can look at. So basically, the first thing you want to look at is the following ratio, for instance. You want to see what's the average engagement, and you want to look at the comments, for instance. People can buy fake comments, but you definitely see that if you scroll and you take a look at the comments, it's going to be only smileys or irrelevant thing, and you can quickly monitor and see if it's worth it or not. I check engagements, I check comments, and I actually check for the comments itself. Directly in the post to see if an influencer is fake or not, and if the engagements are real.
Okay. We're running a little low on time, and there's one other aspect I really want to get to, which is compensation. And then I also want to mention to everyone in the chat, if you post questions, I'm going to leave a little bit of time at the end so that we can answer some of them. I've seen a couple of questions so far in the chat, but if you want to start loading them in now, and we'll get to them in a minute or two. So I want to talk about how you go about paying influencers. And, you know, I'm going to lay out the four main ways of paying people or compensating people. And then I kind of want to know from, I'll start with Josh probably, and then go to Jerome on why you prefer one method to the other. So obviously there's the classic paying people a certain amount of money for the content that they create. There's doing an affiliation kind of campaign where you're paying people based on their followers signing up for something or buying something. We've done in the past events, which influencers love, but I think events are going to take a backseat for a little bit because of all of the worldwide stuff. And also free product, which is really very important as well. Now, Josh, we were talking about this earlier. Can you tell us a little bit about how you think about compensation for influencers and which model you think makes the most sense?
Yeah, so we run a few of these different options in our. There's just different use cases in different places. So, the most common, the one that all influencers are really looking for these days is just pay me. Just right. Here's my rate, pay me. The ones that can really sell and are really confident in selling will go after the affiliate. They'll go the affiliate route to get paid compensation, especially if you have an affiliate program that is pretty generous. And then the ones that are just starting out, the ones that are being referred to nowadays as nano influencers. And that changes, what you consider a nano influencer depends on, where the person's located, where their following is located and whatnot. But, free product is an opportunity, especially if you're looking for just getting the most organic feeling content, because since there's no money being exchanged, the person's going to talk about the product in the most honest way. They're not following any brand guidelines for the most part. They're not. There's no don't say this, you can say this sort of format that exists in especially the straight paid route that most influencers want. And so I wouldn't ignore any of the different options that you have. You just have to know which option is going to work best in which case. and there's definitely a fit for all of them in any well-built influencer program.
And I do want, and I do want to leave a little bit of time for questions. But Jerome, do you have anything you'd like to add on that?
No, I mean, that's I totally agree. I think all of the different types of compensation can work. It depends on the influencer you're looking to hire. It depends on the product you have. One thing really cool when doing sampling campaign where you send out products is the difference in between the perceived value of your product and the actual cost that the product have. So for instance, when you're doing campaign with hundreds of micro influencers, sometimes virtually your product has maybe half the cost of what the perceived value is. And so you can really generate a lot of content, a lot of awareness, engagements, and sales with a lower budget, but of course with more human labor to basically run the campaign.
Yeah, and I want to say one more thing before we get to questions. The one thing I always recommend, and I heard this very early on in my influencer marketing journey here, is don't spend more money than you can afford to lose on influencer marketing, especially if you're new. If you're experienced, take the risks. The amount of risk that you're willing to take will only increase as you get better and better, and your campaigns continue to optimize. And you know exactly what you're looking for. But when you're getting started, if you ever say, if I lose this $1,000 or this $10,000 or this $500, I won't be able to afford X, or especially if you're a small business, I wouldn't say you're ready for influencer marketing. I would go the more traditional routes of PPC or SEO or email marketing or paid social, because those have levers you can pull very easily. Just don't put too big of a budget that your entire company's depending on the results of the campaign.
Right. No, that makes sense. And so I do want to get to some of the questions we have. So please feel free to add questions into the chat. Of course, we here at Upfluence have a influencer marketing platform. I'll put a link in if anybody wants to have a sense of how we can help you look at some of these metrics that we've talked about. We'll put that in there. But I want to answer any of the questions that we have first. But before that, I have to put this up. So Josh said this about us. Anyone who's using a different platform than Upfluence doesn't understand influencer marketing. Thanks, Josh. We appreciate that.
I was actually just going to plug you guys, because I wouldn't have agreed to do this if I didn't truly believe in the tool. There's, not to get, I don't want to go too deep here, but there's two methodologies when it comes to platforms for influencer marketing. There's opt-in, and then there's data aggregators like you guys. If you want strict a finite amount of influencers you can work with, and to pay a large premium on all the campaigns you do, then sign up for one of the opt-in platforms. And there's nothing wrong with that either. It's really how much, Jerome said it earlier, how much time do you have to manage this stuff? If you want all the opportunities in the world, and maybe to even work with an additional agency with Upfluence, because that's always an option as well, to run your campaigns. Upfluence provides the best data that insights for influencer marketing. Honestly, if you haven't yet, at least just install the Chrome plugin and test it when you're on YouTube or Instagram. I think you get 10 profile lookups a day. I know this is a big pitch for you guys. It's honestly it's a game changer. It really is. So.
Well, thank you for that, Josh. I appreciate it. Okay, so we do have a few questions here, and I want to get to some of them. We had a question from Sarah, which you basically kind of got to, but for a startup without massive marketing, is influencer marketing still a good investment versus just doing Facebook ads? Thanks. So I think it's the kind of thing where you want to do what Josh was talking about, dipping your toe in. And it's really about the time frame. We talked about this. It takes 4 to 6 weeks at the early side to have a sense of whether it's working for you, to 3 months. You need to sort of know that what you're investing, you can go with over that time and still be able to see those results coming back.
And I would say for that, free product is a great way to start. these product deals are a super easy way to dip your toes into influencer marketing, but be aware, not every person that agrees to a review is going to do it. You can't expect that just because product's going out the door that you're going to get something in return, even if there's a contract in place. And so just make sure that you know that it's going to take even a lot longer than I would project for a regular paid campaign to go live, and you really don't have control over when it goes live. So yeah, that's an easy way to dip your toes in.
But it also has a good side effect, which is that often when you're a new brand, you struggle with creating content, and you want to power your social accounts with new content, and working with small influencers will also help you regarding this, having content that you can reuse on your different social platforms. And I think it's always a good thing, especially when you're a new company that has just been launched.
One other thing I do want to mention is we just launched a new tool that is really powerful for people who maybe have already built up some of their Instagram following a little bit, but haven't gone all the way. We can do a lot of work where we can actually examine your Instagram followers to help you find people who might be influential. Sometimes influencers will start to follow a brand because they want to work with you. So we can help you find that out. Additionally, we've been working and we can help you find people who've already come to your website, because these are the people who are already interested in the brand. So something they would be much more interested in a free sample as well. So I'd love to, we'll put a link in so we can show you how some of those tools work. Sarah T asks, what software can I use to check influencers' credibility? There are a lot of different ones out there. Once again, Upfluence has a lot of great data on engagement rates, comments, as Jerome was talking about, as well as our data team has put together a really great fake following sort of algorithm so that we can help you cut through that noise as well. I'm gonna just keep going here. Beth asks, what are your thoughts on IGTV? So I'm going to throw that to Josh, because IGTV, of course, being video content, why are you more interested in YouTube than IGTV at this point?
Yeah, IGTV is definitely an option, and I've definitely tried to explore it. I have not, to be clear, launched anything on IGTV. It's really the number of Instagram users, especially influencers, that are utilizing IGTV is relatively low, especially now with the introduction of Reels. And so although from a concept perspective, it makes sense because it's longer form, but you have to always keep in mind, why are people using a platform? Just because a platform decides to launch a feature doesn't mean it's going to be successful. And so you can't really change the way that people use a platform. And I think that's why IGTV struggled to gain traction. People have decided that Instagram isn't for long form. They compartmentalize Instagram for short form viewing, and they compartmentalize, I don't know why I chose that word again, YouTube for long form viewing.
Okay. I'm just gonna keep going because I want to get to a few more of these questions. Jackson asks, does the social media of my company or business need a certain amount of followers or credibility before I approach influencers? I'm gonna go ahead and say, in general, it can't hurt to have a great following, but influencers aren't necessarily checking your following count. They're more interested in your value proposition. They're more interested in what your brand's talking about. They're more interested in how it fits with what they talk about on their channels. So I'll take that one. And the same thing true for Tune to Tailor Time TV. Should I have a certain number of posts before doing influencers? It can't hurt. And you definitely want to have your brand set up and doing things, but they can happen concurrently, I think. Michael Sophia asks about the differences for influencer campaigns between tangible products and non-tangible services. So, Josh, you were talking a lot about this a little bit earlier about, VPN is a kind of a non-tangible service in a sense, or an app or something like that. I think you laid out a lot of that before, like what a brand who has a product needs to think about versus something that's maybe an add-on or an app or something like that.
Yeah, if you can't see the product, don't put it on Instagram. That's what I would say.
Okay. Yeah, I think it goes to what Jerome was also talking about, that, you need that sort of depth of understanding. So those sort of products go well on video content. And by the way, the good old fashioned blog can be good for some of these things too, if you really need to explain something. Let's see. And I might not be able to get to all of these, and I apologize. So Daniel asked, do we have functionality for Twitch? We do. We actually we track in the Upfluence platform quite a few people who are on Twitch, and we can give you some really interesting data on what's been going on with the stream, the name of the stream, number of viewers, things like that. Do you have any success cases to share with working digital virtual products and or services? I'll put a link in. Jerome, maybe we can find a link to our case studies about some of those things, and people can see that in the chat. And the last thing, so we are up on time. I don't mind going a minute over, but I want to get to the last question. So Pablo asks, promoting services against product, any comments? Basically, it's sort of similar to those intangible things. But if you're trying to sell, it really does depend on what you're trying to sell. If you're trying to sell yourself as a consultant, you're going to need, it's about where the content wants to be. If you're trying to sell B2B services, that doesn't really work on Instagram, as a for instance, but you might want to find people who are good on Twitter or LinkedIn, places like that. It depends on whether you're talking B2B or B2C services.
Yeah, who's your audience?
Yeah.
I think that goes back to what we said at the start, is you got to know who your audience is, and if the audience is B2B, then influencer marketing is going to be a little bit tougher.
But it's doable. So usually,
it definitely is doable.
To have a different strategy. We usually, and we've done quite a few campaigns as an agency for B2B companies, and it's actually really cool. So we have different ways. So often what we do is we use a good asset of the company, or we create it for them, let's say a white paper on a really trending topic, for instance, and we use that, and that asset is distributed towards influencers organically, because those are professionals you want you want them to share content. So those are not people that you usually pay, but it can be also to media outlets and so on and so forth. So you have a landing page, so fill up a form to get the white paper and so on and so forth. So there are strategies to do B2B, but it's quite more difficult. Of course, it requires a bit more work upstream, especially on assets, to be able to do it.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to turn to an influencer and say, hey, can you give me an Instagram post about why you should buy this MRI machine, as a for instance? And that's a service, but that's a B2B kind of thing. Okay, I was going to stop, but this is a really good last question. Should a brand influence the content that is created by the influencer, or leave it completely up to them? This is a really important question, and I think it's really key. My sense of this is, as the brand, you want to create a good garden where you define really nicely the area that you want the influencer to be in, so that they can be as creative as they want within your brand's needs and goals. And it is an absolute conversation back and forth between influencers and brands, especially when there's payment involved. That's my sense. But Josh, I want to throw it to you and get your thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, I mean, in the simplest words, let creators create. You provide them with an outline, provide them with everything they need to be successful. You ultimately end up controlling a certain piece of that video, and that is the ad. And so that needs to be on brand. That needs to be, say, all the right talking points, call to action, all the necessary things to make that ad successful. But the content surrounding that, it's a big conversation. And we work with influencers in many different ways. And so I could confidently say that I've never told an influencer to say something outside of the pitch. Do we work together on topics? Sure. If they ask for help, do I give them help? Of course. But the content has to be quality and something that someone wants to consume in their audience. Otherwise, that pitch isn't going to be successful anyway.
Yeah, I think that's really important. But as the brand, you do have the right to say this content isn't quite up to snuff as well. If you,
yes,
and you should take advantage of that. Okay, well, I want to thank you both so much for coming today. We just put a couple of links into the chat. So we put a link to all of our case studies on the that's on our website. So please feel free to take a look at them. We put a link in if somebody wants to learn more about our platform. We have a link to that as well. We can show you how we can help brands do all the work that we were talking about today. I want to thank Jerome, and I really want to thank Josh for joining me today for this webinar. Thank you both so much, and it was really great to have you both here.
My pleasure.
And thank you, Josh.
All right.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks, everybody.